Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 1980 horror film, The Awakening. Now, I don't even really necessarily want to call it a horror movie, because there's really not a lot of horror elements in this. I mean, it's more of a kind of a fantasy drama with horror elements. I mean, technically it is a horror movie, but it's just, the closest thing to horror it is horrible. And I hate to really say that because I actually was curious about this movie. I've been wanting to give this film a look for years. Mainly, it's one of those films that sold me by the cover or by the poster. But the poster is awesome. It's really cool. I love the poster of the mummy. It's a great artwork. It's iconic. Sadly, the movie itself just is nowhere near as scary or as creepy or as cool looking as the film's poster. The movie was released in 1980. It's directed by Mike Newell. This is his directorial debut. He would go on to direct other movies later on in his career, like Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I think his direction in this is fine. It's not a problem. For the most part, this film has a lot of elements to it that actually do work. It's just there's these other problems with it that ultimately unravel everything and just makes everything decay and then fall apart because these other elements are so brittle and so bad that they just end up basically destroying whatever good that this film had going for it. Because it ultimately, there's some good things in this movie that I did like, but the main problem is it just has a very dull screenplay, a very dusty, musty script, and because of the script, because it's so bad, because it decides to. I know, yeah, there's such a thing as a slow burn horror film, and I don't mind them. But like I've said before in other reviews, well, this is one of those slow burns that doesn't even, a fire isn't even lit. So nothing ever burns. So it's just slow. And for the most part, that's one of the biggest problems this film has. It's boring. I mean, you will have a hard time staying awake watching this movie and waiting for the awakening to happen, uh, because it's so boring. The title, The Awakening, yeah, you're gonna try to stay awake. Try your best to stay awake. I shut this off after an hour in one night because it was just so slow. Nothing had happened, and I was dozing off, and then I finished the last half later, which is too bad. Like I said, there's some elements of this that I think work. Mike Newell's direction, the cinematography, I think is gorgeous. These beautiful cinematography by Jack Cardiff. He did a great job bringing out the best of this beautiful Egyptian landscape of seeing these pyramids and all these other elements and that the film had. It was great locations, good production design, good art direction, especially the look of the Egyptian tomb. Uh, and some of the performances are pretty solid. Charlton Heston, his character wasn't really the best written character. And his performance wasn't groundbreaking or like amazing or anything, but it was solid. It was decent. I like Susannah York. Um, so there were some performances by the cast that were pretty good too. But a lot of it's just wasted by a really slow pace and a really dusty script that honestly needed some rewrites, needed to get punched up a little bit. Um, Yeah, I'm not a fan of the screenplay by Clive Exton, Chris Bryan, and Alan Scott. It took three people to write this? Three? Three people? I mean, that's just pathetic. Three people, and they could not come up with a film with this concept that's intriguing, that's engaging, that's actually creepy, that's actually scary, that's actually horrifying in some aspect. Pretty much, The Awakening is a very loose interpretation of the book Jewel of the Seven Stars by Bram Stoker, and there had been a previous adaptation of this before by Hammer Films, which I remember that being better than this. I haven't seen it in a long time. But The Awakening, it was a very loose adaptation of that story because really more of what it was and more of what it is EMI, Thorn EMI, Britain's answer to The Omen. And it's a little bit too late, because the Omen came out, I believe the Omen came out in 70, I think it was 76. So if you're releasing, yeah, it came out in 76, and you wait till 1980 to do your answer to the Omen, I think you missed out on the Omen craze. You missed out on it. I mean, the sequel came out, and I think, yeah, the Omen 2 came out already. And Omen 3 would come out, I think, the year afterwards, in 81. So you kind of missed the boat there anyway. But anyway, yeah, it's definitely more of an Omen ripoff than it is an actual adaptation of Jewel of the Seven Stars. And it's not a good ripoff either. So it's not one of those things. I would say I liked it better than Holocaust 2000, but that was a piece of shit. And once again, I had to see Kirk Douglas's naked old ass. I don't know what's up with Kirk Douglas in his movies. It has a clause in his contract where you must show my ass. Because that's really what a lot of these movies, Saturn 3, Holocaust 2000, old Kirk Douglas ass in your face. Full frontal, right there. Um, but this, it doesn't have any, it basically is like the tamest and lamest version of the Omen you could possibly get. You have a very long patch of time in between kills. You have the kills that do happen. Yes, they look like they're accidents, just like the Omen, but they're not interesting. They're not, there's the gore. They're not gory. They're not fun. They're not unique. They're just dull. And they're very tame. And like I said, very lame. All you'd see is like the first death. This one guy gets a rope around his neck. He falls off a cliff, and then he's dead, and then you see like some blood later, which is just aftermath stuff because the blood is on his body, and they load his body in the back of a truck. Then you go to the next death. This one guy gets hit by a car, but he just runs in front of the car, it hits him, and then you don't even see the car run him over or anything. You just hear him scream, and you hear the car like gun its engine or something, and you hear like a crunching noise, like it ran over him, and that's it. The next death, which I would probably say is the best death of the film, but it's still pretty tame, where there's a trap that gets sprung in the tomb of the Egyptian mummy Kara, and it like stabs this guy. It's like a sarcophagus with this like a spike at the end of it, and it comes out and then stabs him, and blood splatters on the screen. But it's very, so you see it for a little bit. It doesn't really like stab him in the eye. Or Indiana Jones is gorier. Raiders of the Lost Ark was gorier than this, and that's rated PG. And so then you also had like the next death I can think of is Susannah York's character, where she just lays there while this little tiny piece of glass just slowly falls into her neck, and that's it. I mean, no, there's no decapitations, there's no eye gougings, there's no anything. I mean, you do have a fun. I laughed at the scene because it was so, I couldn't take it seriously. It was so laughable. It wasn't like I was laughing with the movie here. I was laughing at it. Where you have Stephanie Zimbalist is going through one of her fits, and she's at a psychiatrist appointment with her psychiatrist, who's played by Ian McDiarmid, who, would go on to play the Emperor in the Star Wars films, Emperor Palpatine. And she just flips out and stabs him with a syringe. And while she's doing that, she's just howling like a fucking howler monkey. She's just like, ah, 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 ah. It's just so laughable. And the fact that she's like stabbing, really what happened was she didn't really stab him with it. And that would have been better. Actually, what happens is the syringe is just laying there on the table, and she's just pounding him while howling like a howler monkey into the syringe. And yeah, the most enjoyment I got out of the film was Oh, cool. Look, I like those I like the Egyptian tomb set. That's beautiful. I really think that's a really good practical effect. It's nice to see a real set. Oh, there's some great cinematography, some pretty pictures. Oh, I like that. Oh, the score by Cloud Bowling is fits the film pretty well. It's not super memorable, but it's decent. Charlton Heston does an all right job performance-wise. I like Susannah York. Um, and then there are other times where I'm just laughing at the movie, like Stephanie Zimbalist in her fits. The scene where she goes and takes this one guy to a play, and then after she gets out of, she's like, boring. I mean, that was like really, really dull. And I'm like, that just sums up the movie. That sums up my exact feelings for the film that I'm watching. Boring. I mean, that was like really, really dull. It's just like, come on, movie, you don't do that. You don't actually say how boring your movie is in the movie. That's not a good idea. And then, laughing at Stephanie Zimbalist's fits. And then when her spirit part of her, of Queen Kara, finally awakens and she's got these stupid looks on her face. They're supposed to be scary or intimidating, but she's got like one half of her face has a smirk and one doesn't, so it looks like she's having a stroke. She's like, it's just like, did she just shit herself, or like, did she have a stroke? I don't know. Maybe it was both, because just does not. Why is she looking like this? Why was the director like, yeah, that's a good look, Stephanie. That's exactly what I want out of this supposedly creepy, scary scene. Fuck's sake. But anyway, really, I mean, The Awakening, there's not much that happens in The Awakening. It's it's 101 minutes. It's way too long. Anytime it tries to be scary, it fails because it's either too tame, it doesn't go all the way with its Omen inspired rip-offness. It's trying to be a rip-off of the Omen. At least own it. At least be, hey, yes, we're ripping off the Omen, but we're gonna have some good kills. No, that's not what happens here. They even have a scene where uh, Stephanie Zimbalist is at a zoo and there's like a monkey or some of the animals are reacting weirdly to her, which is a straight up copy paste moment from The Omen. But it was more effective in The Omen because the animals are actually really freaking out. Here it's just the animals like, oh, who the fuck is this bitch? And then walks away. It was just like, it wasn't even really, even the animals' reactions wasn't even that crazy or that over the top or that enthusiastic. It's like the animal didn't even want to be in the movie, and I don't blame it. Wanted to walk off the set, and then you have there's like before the Susannah York death scene where she's looking around and she sees a golden snake a statue. It's a cobra statue, a golden cobra. Instead of it like turning into a real snake or something, which would actually be kind of creepy and all right, cool, real cobra. No, it just stays a golden statue, and then you hear hissing sounds, and then she like backs into a window and then falls down through one of those outdoor skylights, and then the slow piece of glass falls and then stabs her in the neck. I mean that's it. I mean, even they couldn't even have something as simple as just a golden cobra statue turning into a real cobra. They couldn't even do that. They were lazy. They just were so lazy with their scares and with their attempts at trying to build any sort of suspense or try to creep out the audience. Some of the editing is all right by Terry Rawlings. I'd have to say I think he did a good job with there's like a scene where while Charlton Heston is finding the tomb of Queen Kara, then his wife is going into labor at the same time, and so it cuts back and forth where, she's doing with her labor pains and then he's opening the tomb. Which kind of made you think like maybe there's something a connection with it, like maybe because he opened the tomb and desecrated it, then her baby was born earlier than it was supposed to be, and so forth and so on. So the film kind of had me interested for like the first 20 minutes or so when Charlton Heston is searching. He's in Egypt and he's looking for the tomb. Because I like stuff like that. I like archaeology stuff, I like Indiana Jones and stuff like that. So I was kind of interested in the film at that, and I was okay with a slow build. But after he finds the tomb, and after his baby is born, stillborn, but then comes back to life because the spirit of Kara goes into it, and the audience knows this before Charlton Heston figures it out, like by the end of the movie, which is honestly not that much of a mystery. It's like, hey, if you're gonna make a mystery, I think you at least keep it, mystery. I don't know about you, like keep it a mystery about how this baby came to life, or how, or why his daughter's acting so weird. Nope, nope, not at all. Not a mystery in the slightest. Charlton Heston finds out at the end, and then by then it's too late, and he gets a sarcophagus dropped on his head, and that's it. That's what happens to his character. And so, yeah, so that's basically after that moment, after the baby is born, then it flash forwards years later. Charlton Heston's got a goatee. He's teaching at this school. Stephanie Zimbalist, his daughter, who plays his 18-year-old daughter. She's all grown up. She's interested in meeting with him despite her mother's objections. Uh, this is the same guy who left his pregnant wife while she was in a coma, and his possibly stillborn child, to go dig some more in Egypt. So it's like, hey, this guy's a great guy, man. What a winner, what a keep, what a catch. This fucking doctor, this Corbeck, man, such a catch. So anyway, yeah, so he leaves his pregnancy, she divorces him, understandably so, and then of course he flash forward the years later. He's married, then he marries Susannah York, who was a better fit for him anyway, but who was his former coworker, when he found Queen Kara. Jill Townsend plays his former wife Anne Corbeck, and performance is not that much. Her character's not written that well. She's kind of a bitch. So even when she's in a coma and she's dealing with that, it's like it's kind of like she's not really the most likable character either. So I'm like, so it's like I don't really there's other than Susannah York, I'm like who do I care about? And then there's this random guy that shows up later that works with Corbeck at the Museum of Art, in England, or whatever. Like, it's not really the Museum of Art, but I guess it's a museum. He works in the museum with this guy, and it's Patrick Drury, who plays Paul Whittier. He's Corbeck's assistant and Margaret's love interest, but his character is meaningless. He just shows up later by the end of the movie, breaks into the museum to try because he's figured out what happened, because the canopic jars are missing. Because the whole thing is Stephanie Zimbalist has the spirit of Queen Kara inside of him, and Queen Kara was this Egyptian queen who was evil, and she like killed her father and killed all these other people that knew him, and then she was like killed and then buried in this tomb and cursed. So then her spirit comes out of the tomb, possesses the stillborn baby, the stillborn child of Corbeck and his wife, Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston plays Corbeck, and then she grows up to be Stephanie Zimbalist, and we don't know that much about Stephanie Zimbalist. So this whole idea of she's fighting for her soul, it doesn't work because I barely even know this character. It's so poorly written. So then when she does, end up basically getting taken over by Queen Kara. It's laughable because of Stephanie Zimbalist's terrible acting. But then you have, the climax, which is basically Stephanie Zimbalist's character as just mind controlled, or Margaret Corbeck, Queen Kara has just mind controlled her dad into like trying to bring the mummy back to life. But I guess it's a trick, because what it's supposed to do is a ritual. It's supposed to give the spirit of Queen Kara full control over his daughter's body. And so, not the mummy. So that's the big twist. It's not much. And then the movie ends with, Corbeck dies. His assistant breaks in, tries to help him, and does nothing. We don't even know what happens to him. He just broke into the museum, and that's it. We don't know if he died. We don't know if he helped it. We don't know what happened. We don't know if he married Queen Kara and then they had like children together and then ruled the world together. I have no fucking idea what happens to this character. And then you have the character of Queen Kara herself, which the movie ends with her, she's awakened. And now she's gonna like fuck up the world, I guess. With her like confusing magic powers, which we don't really understand what the gist of them are. She's supposed to be really powerful, but all I really see is some mind control shit. Or like make people hallucinate and see things, or cause people to die by accident. But yeah, so it ends like the Omen does, but it's not as interesting. And it's not, and the idea of an 18-year-old, you know, evil queen isn't as interesting or as, you know, compelling as a little kid doing all these murders, like in The Omen. So even that doesn't work. But part of me is like, okay, if you started the film, if you had the film script was written better, can't believe 3 people wrote this shit. And so if you had it where the awakening happens like in like the 30-minute mark, and then the rest of the movie is just trying to stop Queen Kara's reign of terror, I think that might be kind of fun. You could combine like the Mummy with Carrie or something, and then have some fun with it. The Mummy meets Carrie meets the Omen. You can have fun with that. But that's not what happens here. It's just as slow as a fucking corpse movie that's slow paced, it's boring, not much happens. There's not a lot of characters that you root for, you care about, or you like. And then you just have some good photography, good cinematography, some good editing, decent directing, a capable cast, except for Stephanie Zimbalist, which is all ruined by a really terrible screenplay and a really slow pace, which is due to the bad screenplay, which has too many moments where there's just not much that happens. It's mostly dialogue, mostly pretty shots of Egypt, and one kill and like tame and lame kills, and then a really shitty ending where you're like, wow, like it's very anticlimactic. You're like, I wish the movie started there, or you had that sort of aspect of that ending or later in the film, not save for the end. That's more interesting. Don't end your movie like this. I'm like, hey, I want to watch the movie that happens after the end of the movie. Well, too late. The movie's over. Damn it. I hate this. So that's really that's The Awakening. It's a pretty boring movie. Not much happened. Um, it was Heston's like first foray into like the horror genre, and I think it was also it definitely was not. He could have picked a better uh, one to be in. But I could say there are aspects of the Mega Man are kind of like horror related. So I don't know. I wouldn't really say this is like the first genre film he did. I could say, you know, the Mega Man had its elements that were very close to, you know, horror elements. So I don't know if I could really say this is the first horror film that he did. And regardless, it's not much of a horror movie. I guess during filming in the Valley of the Kings, an unforecast sandstorm swept up on the location while the production was shooting a goodbye scene between Charlton Heston and Susannah York, where Heston rides off into the night in his Land Rover. Arab tents lost their footing, and they flew into the air whilst actress York was knocked over by the sudden and powerful gust of wind. Then camera bulbs got smashed, and the crew raced to cover the camera with a plastic sheet. The storm then subsided and disappeared, but director Mike Newell was advised that such storms can rise up again for a repeat storm. As Heston claimed, the set and York were then helped from as Heston calmed the set. Sorry, I read it wrong. As Heston calmed the set, and York was helped from the sidelines by Heston's wife Lydia, Newell prepared for another take. York and Heston then blocked their spots, and just as Newell yelled action, the storm rose again. As such, the scene got shot with the real-life special effects of a real-life storm, and without any movie manufactured special effects. So, if that was an example of the curse of the Mummy, you just helped the movie. They didn't have to do manufactured special effects. So, you know, wasn't much of a Mummy's curse. If that's as we're trying to, this bit of trivia is trying to act like it was some moment where the production was cursed. It really didn't do much. Just like this movie didn't do much. It didn't do much in the box office. It was a bomb, and critics pretty much slammed it. They pretty much unwrapped it and unraveled it until it fell apart into a bunch of decaying bones and dust, which is honestly what this movie is anyway. I don't know what else to say about The Awakening, except for if I was gonna rate it out of 5 stars. Originally, I was like, hey, it's like a 2-star flick, but then I'm like, there's too many things. The film's too boring. It has an anticlimactic ending. It has laughable acting by Stephanie Zimbalist, and the script is so poor that yeah, there are a few elements of it that I liked, but like some of the performances like Heston and York, and I liked little bits of the score by Claude Bowling, and I thought the direction was good, and I liked the cinematography, and the editing was fine at times, and like that one kill with the trap, but even that wasn't much. But the rest of it sucks so much. The rest of it is so boring and so dull and so lame that it just unravels everything. So that's why I'm gonna give. If I was rated 5 stars, I'm giving it 1.5. It's not a very good movie. It's it's not. It's a film that, if you ask me, it should have been left in its tomb to rot. Anyway, thank you for watching my review of The Awakening. It's not a very good film. It's pretty bad, but at the same time, I've seen worse, but this could be a hell of a lot better. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys later. See ya.